morning, everyone. The first is chapter 1. The chapter 1 is introduction to programming. Number 2 is the program development process. Number 3, the first step program analysis. 4, the second step program design. 5, flow charts. 6, the third step problem coding. 7, the fourth step problem testing and debugging. And 8, the fifth step program documentation and maintenance. The first is introduction to programming. What is introduction to programming? In this chapter, the student should be able to discuss the basic of programming, perform problem solving and activities, develop their logical thinking skill, do problem analysis, describe the steps involved in the program development process, make a program design using flowcharts and algorithm, and difference the three types of program error. The second is program development process. What is program development process? You might think that programming simplified involves typing words and numbers in a computer. Actually, this activity called coding is only a small part of the whole programming process. Programming, also called software engineering, is a multi-step process of creating program. Programming is also a method of solving a problem. Programming uses algorithm. An algorithm is being a set of ordered steps for solving a problem, and essentially a synonym of logic, analytical and critical things is needed a formulation solution to the problem. First is program analysis. Second is program design. Third is program coding. Fourth is program testing and debugging, and the fifth is program documentation and maintenance. The third is steps in programming development. What is steps in program development? You solve problems most of the time. One simple problem is deciding whether to do your assignments or other playing games. A more complicated one is computing the average if your 6 quizzes in maths. A rather complex one is preparing your school payroll processing system. How then do we approach the activity of programming? The following are the procedural steps required in the problem-solving process called programming. Number 1, problem analysis. 2, program design. 3, problem coding. 4, program testing and debugging. Number 5, program documentation and maintenance. The fourth is the first step program analysis. What the first step program analysis? The problem analysis is defined by the American National Standard Institute. It's a methodical investigation of the problem and the separation of the problems into the smaller related units for the future detailed study. Problem analysis is required to performing the following steps. Step 1. Define the problem and the user. Here you need to write a statement on the objectives of the program you are trying to accomplish. That is the problem you are trying to solve. If it's a large program with many functions, divide it into its component parts of modules and state the purpose for each module. You also need to know who will be the users of the program as well as their skill in using the program. Step 2. Determine the desired outputs. Understand the purpose and kinds of output expected of your program. That is the information to be produced and is formal before you study the inputs. Step 3. Determine the desired inputs. Once you know the kind of output required, you can think about the inputs, determine the kind of data needed to produce the output and the format on how the data should appear and source the data. Step 4. Determine the desired processing. Describe what operations are necessary to transform the inputs into the desired result. Diagrams are often helpful to clearly define the transformation involved. Step 5. Double check the Feasibility of implementing the program. Clarify if the program you are supposed to create is feasible within the present setup and or budget. You may probably decide to buy an existing program and modify it rather than write one from scratch. 6. Document the analysis. Make sure your documents everything you do, such as writing the objective specification of the entire process of the problem analysis. The fifth is the second step program design. What the second step program design? The program design process describes the algorithm for the solution of the problems. Algorithms specify what action and operation a program will take. A programmer has several program design tools to choose from: flowcharts, decision tables, or pseudocodes in formulating an algorithm. Program design requires performing the following steps. Number 1. Determine the program logic using a top-down approach and modularization. Logically laying out a program is like outlining a lengthy term paper before you proceed to writing it. Currently, object-oriented program is the approach used by many programmers. This style procedures programs with clean flow, clear design, and a degree of modularity or hierarchical structure. Structured programming takes a top-down approach that breaks down a large program into smaller pieces or modular forms called modules and assembles this piece in a program with coherent logic flow. The concept of modularization is useful as the entire program can be moved easily developed because the parts can be developed and tested separately. Number 2. Design details using pseudocode or flowchart. When you have already determined the essential logic of your program through the use of top-down programming and hierarchy chart, you can then go to work to details. There are two ways to show details: write them by using pseudocode or draw them by using flowchart. Most of projects use both methods. The sixth is flowcharts. Flowcharts use special shapes to represent different types of action or step in the process. Lines and arrows show the sequence of the step and the relationship among them. Use of symbols and phrases to designate the logic of how the problem is solved. A diagram representing the logical sequence in which a combination of step or operation to be performed is blueprint of the program. A system flowchart is a diagram representation of a broad flows of work, documents, and operation. A system flowchart shows what job is to be done. Thus, a system flowchart merely names the process to be performed in the predefined process. A program flowchart is a diagrammatic representation of the solution to a given problem for which the program is written. A program flowchart shows how the job is to be done. Thus, a program flowchart outlines the details of the sequence of operation to be executed. Algorithm defined. Algorithm is finite set of instructions that specify a sequence of operation to be carried out in order to solve a specific problem or class of problem. An algorithm is a procedure or formula for solving the problem. The word derives from the name of the mathematician Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, who was part of the royal court in the Bang had and who lived from the about 780 to 850. This is the sample symbol of flow charting. Number 1, terminal. It's represent to use to signify the beginning and end of the flowchart. Number 2, preparation analyzation. Signify impotence preparation of data. Used to represent instruction or group of instruction that will alter or modify a program's course of execution. Show input and output data are to read the computer memory from input device or data are to be passed from the memory to output devices, input and output. Processing. Perform any calculation that are to be done. Decision. Signifies any decision that are to be done. On-page connector shows the entry or exit point of the flowchart. Off-page connector designate entry to or exit from the one page when flowchart requires more than one page. Flow lines signifies are the process to be executed next. Secondary storage. Use an input-output symbol especially for data moving. End of secondary storage. Predefined path contains the name assigned to the set of instructions that are separated from but may be called within the main program used extensively when the programs are broken from modules. The third step, program coding. The third step, program coding. Once a program design has been developed, a review in a structured walkthrough the actual writing of the program begins. This process is called coding. In coding, the logic requirements from pseudocode, algorithm, or flowchart are translated into lines of instruction. Using a programming language, the letters, numbers, and symbols are arranged accordingly to syntax or language rules that make up the program. The purpose of this step is basically to prepare the program to be inputted to the computer system. Here the step in coding the program. Number 1. Select the appropriate programming language. A programming language such as C, Visual Basic, and Java is a language used to write instruction for the computer. Not all languages are appropriate for all uses. While some have strength in mathematical and statistical processing, others are more appropriate for database management. Hence, in selecting a programming language, you can base it on consideration as what purpose the program designed to serve and what language are already being used in the organization or fields you are in. Number 2. Follow the syntax just as in human language, Filipino, English, Spanish, etc. Programming language have their own grammar, the system of rules for their language by which words are formed and put together to make sentence. Syntax is the grammar of the language. It consists of the rules governing the structure and content of the statement for computer program to work. You have to follow strictly and perfectly the syntax of each language. The fourth step, program testing and debugging. The fourth step, program testing and debugging. Program testing involves running various tests such as checking and debugging. These two tests are called alpha testing and then running actual or real data to make sure the program works. The follower step is in testing a program. Number 1. Perform test checking. Test checking is a simplified reading through or manually testing the solution to make sure that it is free of errors and that the logic works. Test checking is like proofreading. You should do test checking before running your program. Number 2. Debug the program. After test checking, the programmer needs to compile the source code to convert it into the object code. This is necessary because computers cannot understand the programming language directly unless it is transformed into a machine language. A source code refers to the instruction in the programming language, while object codes refers to the instruction in the machine language, which is the language of computers. The process of converting a source code into object code is called compilation. Compilation. During compilation, some program error called bugs may be encountered, causing the program's failure to produce the desired output. The programmer needs to go through the process of detecting, locating, and removing this error, also called debugging, in order for the program to be able to solve the problem at hand. There are 3 types of program errors: syntax error, runtime error, and logical error. Syntax error is the most common error that you will encounter in programming. It is caused by typographical errors such as misspelled words or incorrect symbols, or failure to strictly follow the syntax of the programming language, as a committed function or unmatched parenthesis. Runtime error is a software error that occurs while a program is being executed as detected by a compiler or other supervisory programs. Mostly runtime errors occur in numeric calculations, such as dividing a number by 0, resulting to divide error. In evaluating an expression that would result in a illegal data, such as assigning to an integer type variable a value greater than 32 to 767, which result to an overflow, or in giving an improper input, such as when a user entered the character data where an integer value is expected. Logic errors are caused by incorrect use of control structure. These errors are much more difficult to detect than syntax error because the computer cannot tell an error in the logic in the program. Number 3. Run real data. After this checking and debugging, the program then needs to be tested with real data called beta testing. There is a need to also test a program with bad data that is faulty, incomplete, or in overwhelming quantities, to see if this can make a system crash in the programming. Programmers should consider the fact that there could be users who are far more heavy-handed, ignorant, and careless. The last is the 5th step: program documentation and maintenance. Documentation is the set of instructions shipped with the program or a piece of hardware. Documentation usually includes necessary instruction on the use and maintenance of the product. It is not just at end stage process of programming. In fact, it needs to be done throughout the entire programming steps. It's needed for people, user, computers, operators, and programmers who will be using the program or will be involved with the program in the failure. Program documentation and maintenance consists of the following steps. Number 1. Prepare users documentation. The printed on disk or online manuals in commercial software package are user documentation which can help non-programmers use the software. Number 2. Prepare operator documentation. The people who run computers are called computer operators. They are not necessarily programmers. Hence, they also need information, documentation on what to do when the program malfunctions. Number 3. Prepare program documentation. Program documentation consists of written, graphical, and electronic description of what the program is and how to use it that makes the program understandable. Even at the later time, the variables are defined and the comments are made to be informative. New programmers can maintain the existing system because of program documentation. Good documentation reduces effort on program maintenance and major program overhaul. Maintain the program. Maintenance is any activity designed to keep programs error-free, up to date, and in good working condition. It includes test, adjustment, replacement, repair, and so on and so forth. Since organizations change their products, marketing strategies, accounting system, etc., this change should be documented to help programmers make adjustments in existing systems.